Hello Year 5s and welcome to your first Thursday art lesson of this half term. And we're going to be looking at exploring and mimicking styles of Norse art. And this is going to start us off with a project that's going to run for the next 4 weeks, okay? So I want you to start by thinking, who were the Norse and what styles of art did they have? So pause the video now and think about, what do you know about the Norse? Okay, so hopefully you've heard that word Norse cropping up in our English. It's come up in Beowulf and I think it's come up in Odd and the Frost Giants. But just to make it really sure we're all on the same page, Norse and Viking refer to the people who settled in Scandinavia during the Viking Age, and they spoke Old Norse as their language. So when we're talking about the Norse, we're talking about the Vikings. Now, what styles of art did they have? Now, you might have been looking at these pictures and been thinking, about maybe you've already got an image in your mind of the kind of way Viking people might have looked, what they might have worn, the different jewelry they might have had, the ships they might have built. But I want us to go a bit deeper into thinking about actually their art. What styles did they have? Okay, so we're going to explore that now. And we're going to just start by looking at some artifacts first and seeing what that can teach us. So I found this quite interesting, but the Vikings didn't actually create art for decoration's sake. Meaning they didn't paint pictures just to hang on the wall and call it a piece of art. They didn't make sculptures that were just meant to be decorative. Instead, Norse art involved the beautiful decoration of everyday objects. So we've got some everyday objects here. We've got the brooch at the top, the axe head in the middle, and an ear scraper at the bottom, yes, for scraping out earwax. And you can see that even though these are quite simple objects and they would have been used every day, they are beautifully decorated. So that's what Norse art was all about. So you can look in a bit more detail at the information, pause the video now and have a little look at how those things were decorated. Okay, so moving on, there's just a few other things that I want us to talk about. So there were actually 6 different styles of Norse art that was developed over the Viking era. We might not look at every single one of those 6, but if you want to look at them in more detail, there's a web link on Padlet. So basically, a style would have been created, and then people would have decorated their objects with that style across Scandinavia. And it shows amazing communication links that the Vikings had because, knew that those artistic styles were seen in objects across Scandinavia when archaeologists have been uncovering artifacts. So it just shows that those artistic styles were carried from place to place and they were adopted. But then, of course, things change, don't they? So as a new style might have been adapted, it might have coexisted with the old style, and then the old style might have been phased out, and then that new style would have been the one that everyone was using, the one that was all the rage. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of a sense of how we can look at artifacts and how it can give us a real sense of understanding about the people and the fact that they must have had great communication links. So I want us to start looking at the styles in more detail. So there's 4 artifacts here. You can see they're all worked into metal. Great metal workers. I want you to see if you can spot any similarities and differences in the styles. Do you think that these are different styles or similar styles? Pause the video now. Okay, so let's look at the styles in a little bit more detail because actually I'm going to show you 4 of the styles here. We've got Mammon style, Ernest style, Broa style and Bora style. So hopefully you can see that there are some similarities and there are some differences as well between these. I want us to focus in on the things that are similar about Norse art because there are some similarities and differences too. And on the next page, I've tried to summarize it. So here we go. Oh, I'll just take my annotations off. So let's go through some of the key features. The things that I noticed that were the same across all the different styles was a border. So whether that was the edge of an item like on the axe blade or whether it's some kind of box around the actual image. I also noticed a background that's either left plain or textured or patterned in some way. And I saw that there was a really clear foreground image that was either an animal figure or some kind of geometric shape, maybe curved shapes. So please could you now pause the video and look at the images on this page and maybe even go back to the page before and see if you can label the images with those features. Can you spot what I can spot? Pause the video now. Okay, so let's just go through a few of these. So, if I use my pen. So borders, I noticed that this particular piece of art had different borders. So it kind of had this border here with the circles almost looks like something might have been riveted or nailed there. And we've got a decorative border here that's different. Whereas this piece has just got a basic outline, hasn't it? And it's not particularly straight. They didn't use a ruler for that one. Backgrounds, let's look at backgrounds. So I hope you noticed that the background on this one is plain, isn't it? There's nothing in the background. And that might be because this is quite an intricate design. So maybe the person didn't want the background to sort of overtake the design in the foreground. This one, however, though, is textured and patterned. It's made up of lots of little dots or circles in the background. And of course, the foreground image, well, the foreground image in both of these, I think, is kind of like an animal figure. It looks like we've got a kind of horse here, doesn't it? But I hope you noticed that actually in some of them, like this Broer style, we've just got intertwining curves and spirals. So it doesn't always have to be an animal motif. This even looks like a kind of beast or a human, like maybe a monster. So lots of different ideas that we can use. Now, there's one more thing that I want us to just explore, because you might have been looking at some of those styles thinking that looks very similar to Anglo-Saxon style. So let's just explore the difference between Norse art and Anglo-Saxon art. You might want to pause the video now and see if you can spot any differences between them. Okay, so I did a bit of research in this and I found out that Norse art favours flow and curves, and that's to represent the flow of fate, which is an important Viking belief that you're going to get to know a lot more about. You might know about fate already, the idea that things, your path is already set. So these curves are representing fate, maybe the journey that you would go on in your life. And it's not actually symmetrical, is it? We've got kind of a symmetrical curve here, but the knots and patterns inside aren't really symmetrical. Whereas if we look at the Anglo-Saxon art, we can definitely see symmetry here, can't we? If I drew a mirror line, maybe on here, we can see that these two sort of studs would reflect across that mirror line exactly. We've got half a circle and then the other half here. And also, if I draw one on our clasp as well, well, that's not exactly straight. Might just need to wiggle that slightly. I think you know what I mean. We'd be able to reflect across that mirror line as well, and we'd see some symmetry too. Okay, so hopefully you can see some similarities, but also those differences too. Now, the next couple of pages are just there for us to look a bit more closely at the motifs, because some of them are quite complicated. And so today's lesson is about us practicing, thinking about how we could draw these motifs. So you might want to copy some of these a bit later. I like this one because this one's quite simple. It's a snake that's been drawn, and you've just got to remember that you've got to have curves, okay, curves and curls. It doesn't have to be an overly complicated shape. We've got runes inside this one, haven't we? And then there's a kind of flower pattern. And I would say that the border is actually the piece of stone that it's on, and we've got kind of textured stone background. There's a few other motifs. So in some pieces of artwork, you've got human figures, but we've also got shapes and rune type symbols as well. So you might want to have a look at those. Okay, so what I want you to do first is I want you to think about the background, and I want you to think about creating different textures of backgrounds that could go behind your image. Obviously, we're not just going to leave all of them plain. We want to explore some backgrounds. So you could take rubbings at this point, or you could use pencil shading techniques. You could use mono printing, which is where you print with an object. I'll show you that in a minute. You could draw borders to make it clear where backgrounds begin and end. You could have a little play about making a decorative border. So I'm just going to share my screen here to show you that, you know, you can quite easily go around your house and take some different rubbings. I've taken some different rubbings, which I'll show you in a moment. So here you go. Hopefully it will work. This is me outside. I wanted something kind of bumpy to mimic the circles idea. So just hold your paper steady, have your pencil sort of flat, low down, use your finger to guide it. It's really quite satisfying taking a rubbing. There you go, nice texture there. I'll just show you another one because I also wanted to create a different kind of bumpy texture. So this is a towel in my bathroom, one of those bath mat kind of towels. So again, just hold the paper steady, let your pencil run back and forth. It does need to be quite a sharp pencil. So you can have fun going around your house and creating some different rubbings, some different textures. I'm just going to see if I can stop sharing my screen now. Ooh. sorry, stop share. I'll unpin myself and then I'll pin my demonstration space, because you can see that I've had a little bit of fun here creating some different textures. This was some wood actually, so I created the rubbing going one way and then I turned the paper around and did it going the other way. And you can see that I made, you know, some nice textures using the different bumps and lumps. If you wanted to do something with printing, that could be quite a good idea too. If you've got paint, you could use paint, or if you've got something like a stamper. I just so happen to have a stamp here. I can't seem to open it right now. There we go. And I actually noticed that the bottom of my pen would create quite a nice circle shape. So I'm just going to demonstrate that for you. But what I might want to do is create a little border for this to go in. So maybe if I just create a sort of curved border shape, I can see how, if I can create those circles inside. So I'll just get my paint. I mean, you could even use a sort of marker or a highlighter or something. You could use vegetables. Okay, and I get some quite nice circle effects. So this would make a nice background for an image to go over the top. Just do a few more. So ideally I'd want to absolutely fill this box, wouldn't I? But I don't want to waste time. So you guys can have a little go. So just be creative with what you find to create those background textures. Now, the next part of your task, your independent practice, is to go back and look at those images and see if you can recreate some of those foreground images. So those animal motifs, or maybe those geometric shapes. And you could always do that over the top of your backgrounds that you've created. So I was thinking about an animal motif. You guys can go back and copy them, as I said, but I quite like cats, as you all know. So I was thinking, okay, if I draw a basic outline of a cat to start with, just to help you remember what a cat looks like. It would have a tail, wouldn't it? And then it has legs. I've drawn cats quite a few times, you can probably tell. So just maybe choose your favourite animal. You can always take a picture off the internet, couldn't you? So there's a basic cat, but I want to make it more stylized. So I'm going to need to use curves and curls and lines and all sorts of things. So maybe if I go here, I could still keep that cat head shape. But maybe I could put some geometric sort of triangle shapes inside the ears. Maybe I could use lines, add a bit of detail. I don't want to add too much detail. Perhaps then I could just be creative with my curves. Something like this. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I mean. So have some fun creating some different images. You could always then choose to go over your foreground images just to make them really stand out. It might be as well that you want to play with creating overlapping and underlapping sort of motifs. So maybe I'll just do one of those here so we can have a little look at that. So if I wanted to create an overlapping shape, I might draw maybe 2 lines. Maybe if I was going to have 2 lines cutting across, I'd need to leave a gap, wouldn't I? Now I know that Anglo-Saxon artists are more symmetrical, but I might do a little bit of symmetry here. So if I wanted an overlap, I could then draw some lines coming across, couldn't I? Okay, and that way I don't have to actually rub anything out. So if you leave little gates for things, it can create a nice effect. And you can always make it look a bit more 3-dimensional by adding those different lines to show sort of shadows. Okay, so have some fun with your guided practice and your independent practice, and please send anything that you do into the Year 5 email. It'd be great to see what you get up to. Okay, I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.